All of you are here because you're leaders. Surprise, surprise. Some of you are natural born leaders. You just kind of do it because it just comes out of your heart, it comes out of who you are. Some of you are not so good at it, but there's hope. You can learn. You can learn leadership. I've been very fortunate. I was born with leadership in my heart. One of the giftings that God gave to me, and I don't say that arrogantly. Lots of my leadership happened by mistake, without me really knowing what I was doing. But I think it came from following God's promptings in my heart. And so no matter where you're on that journey, no matter about your evaluation of what you're like as a leader, there's hope. You can learn leadership practices because how you lead really does matter a whole lot. And I love what Brett challenged us earlier, that the love of Christ compels me to do what I do. I do this because I love God so much. I love ending my prayers in, God, we do this because we love you so much. We do what we do because we love you. And if we take that attitude into leadership, that'd be an awesome way to go. And so we're going to have some more fun. And we want you, Brett, how does this thing work? There we go. Up here, we've had some Mac, and so that I'm not very good with Macs. We've got a bunch of cards up here, and we're going to invite you again, now that you're so comfortably seated, to get out of your seats and come and pick 2 cards. The very first card you pick is that card that represents the state of your ministry, that best describes where your ministry is at right now. These are fun cards, so don't read all of them, but as you see one, glance at it, and whoa, that describes who I am. So come up here, pick 2 cards. One that says, here's what my ministry looks like today, and the second one, what I'd like my ministry to look like. And then when you've got those cards, head back to your seat, and we'll go from there. All right. If we can pull it together here, we're going to get Ivy to read Romans chapter 13. Romans 13. Give us a quick listen to the leadership directives in this passage.
Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval, for he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Therefore, one must be in subjection, not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. For because of this, you also pay taxes, for the authorities are ministers of God, attending to this very thing. Pay to all what is owed to them, taxes to whom taxes are owed, revenue to whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed.
Wow, there's some powerful little segments in there. I wish we had time to unpack that, but circle that in your notes and go back to that and pull out the principles of leadership. Pull out the principles of honoring those in leadership, and let that sink into your heart, and recognize and invite the Lord to guide you as you develop your leadership role, as others subject to you and follow your lead. So what I want you to do is to turn to a friend, preferably one that you don't know very well. So you might want to turn across this way or sideways, and just explain really quickly the first card. We'll do this in about 2 minutes, so you've got a minute each. You've got a minute each. And so talk about, first of all, the card that represents your ministry now. All right, the roar is dying down. And so that we're gonna cut you off there and give your attention to Brett.
I'll get him. So those are interesting little things to get you talking, apparently. And you can carry on those conversations after and for the rest of the week. Talk about where your leadership's at and where you wish it would be. And hopefully, if those look similar, that's fantastic. But chances are there's a few who have some adjustments to make. So here's the question I want to ask you. What is it, and you, again, this is a free association kind of thing, what is it that you expect from those who lead you? Just call out things. What is it that you expect from those who lead you?
They know where they're going.
Okay, great.
Advocacy.
Oh, nice. Advocacy. Yeah.
Involvement.
Cool.
Accountability.
Accountability here.
Empowerment.
Empowerment.
Commitment.
Commitment. Nice.
An example.
Excellent.
Forgiveness.
Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah. Nice.
Respect.
Yep.
Encouragement.
Excellent.
Driven.
Drivenness. Okay. Understanding. Okay. Yeah. Anything else? Integrity. Okay. Great one.
Guidance.
Yeah.
Generosity.
Beautiful. Okay.
I want to see that they're growing too.
Nice.
Vulnerability.
Excellent. Okay. That's a good list. So Kuz and Posner, who wrote this book, which is now in its 6th edition actually, asked this question about 30 years ago. They asked people in all sorts of walks of life, whether they were nursing professionals, educators. They've actually done studies among ministers of different denominations to see, who led according to the practices more effectively. There's hundreds of thousands of people who have done the assessments now and who've contributed to that research. So they asked them that question, what is it that you expect from those who lead you? So they came up with 5 common practices. And they also asked them this question. They said, the people who have led you, and maybe this will help you, we'll answer this for a second too. The best leaders you've ever had, what did they do? Think about the best leader you've ever had. What did they do for you? How did they help you?
You asking?
Yep.
Listen.
That's what I was going to say. Taught me how to listen.
Nice.
They ripped apart everything I believed so I would think about what I believed.
Hey, me
Okay.
too. Yeah.
Okay. Little deconstruction now and then doesn't hurt. Okay. Anything else?
Invested in people.
Nice. Okay.
Being honest.
Being honest. Okay, cool.
Work alongside, not above.
Nice.
With instead of above.
Okay, they're involved.
Fail.
Great. So here's what I want you to do. In the top left-hand side of your page, any page you've got open, it doesn't matter. I want you to, and we're not going to name names here, but I want you to think in the top left corner, the worst leader that you have ever been under their leadership. Give them a mark out of 10. If 10's the best, 1's the worst, give them a mark. Top left corner.
The best of the worst or the worst of the worst?
The worst of the worst. So, yeah, just give them a mark out of 10. The worst leader you can remember, give them a mark out of 10 and put it in the top left corner of your page. Doesn't matter. Ministry or any part of life.
Leader I ever had.
Yeah, don't tell us their name. Okay. So, it might be the most frustrating leader you ever had. Now, in the top right side of the page, put the best leader you ever have and give them a grade out of 10. So you'll probably notice a pretty significant difference. So does anybody have a difference between their lowest and highest leader of greater than 50%? Okay, 60% difference. 70%. Yeah, so that would mean a difference of 7 or more. Yeah, 80. 90. Okay, so that's pretty significant. And I want to touch on something that Jim said a few minutes ago again. He said that these leadership habits, these behaviors can be learned. Okay, there's certain people that seem to come flying out of the womb and you know, they're good leaders. They can do it, well, they're born to lead. You've heard that phrase. And then there's others of us who have to work hard at it, and we learn these practices. So the good news is, what Coos and Posner would say, is that these practices can be learned. Okay, so if we take them seriously, they can be learned. Here's their definition, and then I'll show you what those practices are that they came up with. Okay, so leadership is the art of mobilizing others to want to struggle for shared aspirations. That want to is key. Okay, so you can work for somebody, or you know, you can follow their leadership because you have to, but when you want to, that's huge. That's a great difference, isn't it? So I love that definition. And so the 5 practices that they came up with are right here. So think of all those things that you've said, and you've given me some great answers. And the only way, unfortunately, I have memorized to say this is with the acrostic MICE. Okay, so they model the way, they inspire a shared vision, they challenge the process, they enable others to act, and they encourage the heart. So here's the thing, if you hear nothing else tonight, the more you practice these things, these 5 things, the more you practice them, the more effective leader you'll be. Okay, that's the bottom line. Because they asked people, what do you expect from your leaders? They were the same 5 practices. So you can say with a whole bunch of confidence, if there are people who volunteers in your ministry, children and youth that are following you in your ministry, whatever the case is, you can say with a great degree of confidence that this is what they expect, these 5 practices. So let's carry on here. Jim, I think you're up again.
You model the way, and all of you can read, and so that you set the example by aligning the actions. Find your voice by clarifying your personal values. It is so important that people understand what are the negotiables and what are the non-negotiables. What are we aiming for? I was entirely blessed last week. We asked Gary, who was one of the first kids who committed his life to follow Christ in our drop-in ministry back in 1990. We asked him to do a videotape and to put a testimony on our website. And I did not know this was coming, but in the videotape, Gary talked about when we were starting our building project, and we invited the teens to come in and to say, here's what we want. He said, you inspired our vision, and he used those words. And he said, you let us have meetings, just the teens, and to come with suggestions. We knew what we couldn't do, and we knew what we were aiming towards. I didn't realize I was doing that, but we invited the kids to come in and to do that. It's so important that you, as a leader, explain exactly what's negotiable, what's non-negotiable. What are we aiming at? Do you have a clear vision of what are we going for? Whether it's a sports ministry, whether it's a campus life program, whether it's a prison visitation, what am I hoping to do when we go in there and when I take some volunteers with us? Set the example by aligning the actions and the shared values so that what we're saying actually lines up with what we're doing, and making sure that we're being true to that particular voice. Children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they've never failed to imitate them. And Postursky talked about that when he talked about clarifying our values. I near lost my job at one point when I talked to our denominational leaders about how, if they took a look at their kids, how they perfectly reflected the values of the adults. And so that it's just so important to share that inspired vision and to make sure that you know where you're going. Brett, I think this one is you.
So second thing that second practice that is exemplary is they inspire a shared vision. So they enlist others in a common vision by appealing to shared aspirations. One of the best trips or moments that I experienced this was on a trip to Willow Creek Community Church. And no matter what you think about Willow Creek, what they do in this regard is brilliant. So their vision statement is, you may know it, is to turn irreligious people into fully devoted followers of Christ. So I walked into that church that night, and they have it on their TV monitors as you come down the hall. They have it on signs. They have it on banners across the stage. The person up front would say that. What are we about? We're to turn irreligious people into fully devoted followers of Christ. So, because I'm a curious guy and sometimes I like to create a bit of trouble, I asked this woman. So here, to me, this is the worst job in the world, okay? Because I have a bit of a food phobia. So this woman was working in the cafeteria clearing trays, like after people have eaten eaten half the meal, and it just looks ugly and messy. She was taking people's plates, dumping it into the garbage, and then putting it up on a tray, and it just looked gross to me. And so I said to her, "Why are you doing this? Like, why do you do this?" And she said, "Oh, that's easy, to turn irreligious people into fully devoted followers of Christ." So this woman who's cleaning up the worst part of what's been in people's mouths, does that because she knows what her vision is about. And I thought it was just brilliant. Secondly, they envision the future by imagining exciting and ennobling possibilities. Has anybody watched that new series of shows that David Letterman is doing where he's interviewing people? I think he started off with George Clooney. The one that he did that I thought was absolutely brilliant was he's interviewing Malala. And you remember who Malala is, the young woman who was shot in the head by the Taliban simply because she was going to school? And so the interview is an interesting one. Has anybody watched that one? Okay, so it's a bit of an interesting one because Dave's awkward. And his humor doesn't quite translate to Malala. But he keeps trying to, get her to speak badly about people or whatever the case may be. And he says, "So why are you doing it?" And every time that she got the opportunity, she's incredibly intelligent, she would just say, "Because I believe that young women deserve the right to be educated." So why do you do this? Why did you go back to your homeland? Isn't that risky? Isn't that dangerous? Yeah, but I think it will allow young women the opportunity to receive an education. But you're so busy. You're going to Oxford. You're trying hard. You have to stay up late at night. Why do you do it? So that young women get an opportunity to receive an education. So she's absolutely brilliant. A few months ago, we began to pray about, what do we want Summer Institute to be about this year? So we came together as a team. This is something that's called 5 Bold Steps. You'll get a chance to do this on Saturday. And the sunburst in the middle, here's what SI is all about, so you know, because now you're part of it. SI exists to equip YFC missionaries with foundational resources, foster meaningful, transformative relationships while encountering God. So everything we do this week, that is the core of what we're doing. Okay, so I will say that to the team probably ad nauseum this week. We will look at that. We've talked about it for months. We've prayed about it, and so on. And then we have those 5 numbered things. Those are the bold steps that we want to do. So for instance, we established a foundation of prayer. So Joel told me this afternoon there's actually 116 people praying for us all through this week with very specific things. For the speakers, for you as participants, for small groups. That's very cool, right? Behind the scenes, what are you can see the challenges, the supports, our values, trying to model humility and grace, calling, and rooted missionary identity. You see those things. So this is kind of our guiding principles for the week. This is what is before us. This is why we're doing it. So as a leader, my role, and the team shares in this, but our role is to keep coming back to this and say, why are we doing this? Okay, so that people are equipped with foundational resources, meaningful relationships while encountering God. So every day you will be faced with an opportunity to come before God, and we hope that the whole day reflects that. So inspiring a shared vision is the second incredible exemplary practice. Over to you, my friend.
One of the easiest things that leaders do most often is to just keep doing what we've always done, because that's all we know. And we're afraid to go and look at what might be there. So challenge the process. Search for opportunities together with people that you're involved with of how else might we do this? How can we change? How can we grow? I have just given my leadership role as the executive director to Reuben Singh 3 years ago. And people have been watching from the sidelines wondering, when are we going to get in each other's hair? Well, he doesn't have very much hair at all. He keeps his head shaved so that I can't get in there and yank at him. But one of the things that I committed to when we handed that baton to Reuben is that Reuben is now the executive director. My days of executive director are done. I'm moving over, I'm moving backwards. I'll be his coach, I'll be his support, I'll be his, but from here on, it's not going to be Jim Harm's way, it's going to be Reuben Singh's way. And so we're looking together creatively for how else might we do this. I've had one bad day, and I'll tell you about that day. He came with his tool bag and wrecking bar, and I've wondered, what the heck are we doing today? And when we built our new building in 1991, we'd put restaurant booths. And I thought it was the most marvelous thing because it allowed us to look in when kids and leaders were sitting there and interacting, but they had a little bit of privacy. And they were very intentionally created. The teens actually asked for those booths to be put in there. And Reuben says, we're going to remove the booths. We're getting rid of them. And I thought, what the heck? I actually thought something else, but I thought, what are we doing? That was the absolute most painful day of this entire transition, because now he's taking what I thought was so brilliant and removing it. Now, I've forgiven him for doing it. The pain of that day, and I'll just tell you about that, is that they wrecked it and pulled it all apart, and then they had no way of getting the things out of there. Well, my son has a moving company, and so I ended up having to move those damn bleachers out of the building by myself on a little four-wheel cart, put them on the truck with a lift, deliver them to the church that was now going to take them, and I was furious. And I went to Reuben the day after, and I said, Reuben, we need to talk about this so it doesn't create a whole new rift between us. And I said, this was the most disturbing day I've had since you've become the executive director. I had no idea it was going to be happening, and now we've removed my brilliant idea, and now we're going to create what you're going to do. Well, that night, the kids came in. Where did our booths go? And they were so upset. And Reuben and the staff, we hated those booths from the very start. But it was the kind of a thing that, you know what, let's look for new and innovative ways that are going to help us get the job done. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. And so we experiment with different ways. We're in a building process right now, and we're going to be taking some risks again at how to renovate backstage, our drop-in center. And I am not the one who's taking the lead on it, and people are waiting for me to keep prodding. But it's not my place at this point. It's Reuben's place to now figure out what are we going to do, what's that going to look like, and myself applauding Reuben as we go, applauding for the successes. On Thursday last week, we had a meeting scheduled with the contractor to come and do the dream design and build. The guy totally forgot about us. Reuben was furious. So I called up Nick and I said, Nick, are you coming? And he said, no, I'm not coming today. I totally forgot about you. Yesterday I noticed Reuben looking for another meeting with Nick. Nick still hadn't showed up a half hour after he was supposed to be there. So now he took the lead, and we may well experiment with another contractor at this point and to see. And so that recognizing that there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to do your ministry. And we need to be creative about that. We need to be willing to take the risks and to say, you know what, this one didn't work. I failed. Let's try another one. And not being afraid, challenging that process, learning from the mistakes, and that will be amazing.
First of all, apologies to any of you who are cat fans. So yeah, maybe you're not that sensitive to people. So I think we got that sense. Albert Einstein said this. Mel, can you read that for us? Just.
I am enough of an artist to draw freely upon my imagination. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world.
So we enjoy those people, usually, we enjoy those people who are looking at different ways of doing things, right? Who are being creative, who are saying, is there a different way to do this? Because we've always done it the same way and we've been getting the same results, which is the definition of insanity. So let's do things a little bit differently. The fourth exemplary practice of leadership is enabling others to act, where we foster collaboration by promoting cooperative goals and building trust. So sometimes that takes more time, building cooperative goals, because you have to have dialogue. As a leader, you can say, this is how we're going to do it. Or you can say, let's figure this out together. At the end of the day, somebody has to be the point person. But if you dialogue and you come up with those goals together, guess what? There's a greater sense of ownership. There's a greater buy-in. It also involves this, strengthening others by sharing power and discretion. For a lot of people in ministry, including me, I'll be honest here, this is probably the most difficult of the 5 practices. And you can do something called a leadership practice inventory, where it'll give you a real sense of where you are in each of the 4 areas. And the good news is that the more you practice it, the better you get at those things. And I remember I had a staff person years ago in Woodstock. Her name was Rebecca. And I was just a little bit frustrated because Rebecca was incredibly gifted. Susie knows her. She's one of the most gifted people I ever knew. But it seemed to me that she wasn't running full steam. That she was not working as hard as I thought she could. So I figured out in my mind one day how I was going to approach her. We sat down for a one-on-one staff meeting, our supervisory meeting, and I said, Rebecca, here's what I think is happening. I said, you are incredibly gifted. Here's all the things that you can do. You have a heart for discipleship. You're a great communicator. You're excellent administratively. But it just seems to me that you're not working at your full capacity. And so I said, can we talk about that? And she said, yeah. She said, do you want to know why that is? And I said, sure. And she said, it's because every time you assign something for me to do, you come in before I've finished it and you take over. It's one of the best lessons I've ever learned. I'm still learning it, I'll be honest. My team knows this. So still learning this. When you actually give people authority and enable them to do something, you actually have to give them that chance to do it. And our tendency is to want to step in and fix it. Here's a good thing to remember. It's not just about getting the task completed, it's about people's development. So if you want to go to the next level of leadership, you'll actually let people attempt things, and when they're good, tell them. When they fail, let them know and offer some constructive criticism, but enable them to act. How many people have been frustrated in life or ministry because somebody stepped in and took over? Okay, stop it. Okay, simple as that. And now I'm going to turn it back to Jim for one last one.
When you're working with people, it's so important that you recognize their efforts. And we just started into that. Recognizing when they do a really good job, letting them know when they've fallen a little short, but being critically honest about what's going on. Bringing them in, drawing them into that team, and showing them. I think that some little tokens of appreciation, tangible things, are so important. A little chocolate, is probably all they need to be able to recognize that, you know what, I was noticed. I like nothing better than when somebody notices that I've done something and I didn't really have to do it, but they noticed it and they voiced it to me. And so that recognizing the contributions, recognizing the efforts they place into it. Celebrating the values and victories by creating a spirit of community. Recognizing that it's not all about leader Jim, leader whoever you are, but it's about this team effort. And the more you can involve a team, the better off your project is going to be. It's going to be a huge success if you can celebrate it as a team, as a community. You may have seen an organization, perhaps a church, where a pastor has come in and just set up this wonderful ministry, done a great ministry, and when the minister leaves, what happens to the church? It just goes right down the tube. It was probably never the intention of the pastor to do that and to have that sort of a church, but he failed to bring in that community and to recognize that we're doing this as a team. Brett mentioned the cleaning the plates lady at Willow Creek, the custodian. Leaving a little note for the custodian, the lady who comes, the man who comes to clean your drop-in, to clean the toilets, grossest job possible, but they come and they love doing it because they get $40 at the end of the task, and they feel like they're contributing. Give them the sense of celebration that the custodian, the cleaner, is a part of this community and providing a great clean center for the kids, and together we're doing the absolute best possible, and celebrate that. Recognize them in the community, perhaps on the radio, perhaps in on your website, just to cheer them up and to recognize it's not about the executive director, it's about our team effort. You cannot overemphasize the team. Cheer on the team.
Hey, so we're almost done for the night, and I'm going to invite Joel and Viv up in a moment. But just by way of review, so Micey, let's see if we can remember them all without looking at your pages. Don't look at your pages, cheaters. Sorry, what's M? Model the way. I? Inspire a shared vision. You cannot say what that vision is enough. Okay, you cannot overdo that. It's not possible. It leaks out, people forget, so keep saying it. C. Okay, is there a better way? Let's be creative. All right. E. Enable others to act. Okay, great one. Challenging, but a really important one. And then finally, encourage the heart. And Coos and Posner would say this: if you don't do any of the other ones well, make sure you get that one down well. Okay, because it's foundational, and people will forgive you for a lot of things if you encourage their heart. They think it's so important, they wrote another whole book about it. Okay, so one of the reasons I love this thing is because I love sitting in restaurants with somebody that I'm coaching or whatever the case is, or a youth pastor, and they say, you know, how do I help my people on my team understand what leadership is about? They said, oh, let's talk about these 5 practices. You can tell them easily. It gives you a common language, and the more you do it, the more effective you become. Simple enough? Cool. Tomorrow night, you're going to get a chance to experience this. You guys are actually going to come up with a mission, and you're going to make a presentation to the rest of us. So you're going to come up with the mission and core values, and we will walk you through that, but it's going to be a fun way to practice that. And I already heard from somebody today, because they were in my class at Emmanuel Bible College. They remembered doing this, but they said, I need a refresher on this, because now they're in ministry and they're doing it, it becomes more important. So 5 practices. Over to you, Viv or Joel, whoever it is.